Today I compiled 10 of my album reviews of the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list. Today I listened to album 390, the Pixies' 1988 album Surfer Rosa, the blueprint for a generation. Every band in the 90s wanted to emulate the Pixies, emphasize the quiet, loud contrast and slow down punk while adding melodic elements. Surfer Rosa was recorded on the auspices of Steve Albini, who would later produce In Utero for Nirvana, if you need proof of the Pixies' influence. In terms of the music, I do think the first half is stronger than the second. The first half has Bone Machine, Break My Body and Gigantic, which is definitely the most accessible song on the record. The second half leads with Where Is My Mind, a truly transcendently beautiful song which towers over everything that the Pixies did before or afterwards. However, it also features pseudo-ironic songs like Tony's Theme and Oh My Golly, which actually wear on me after a while. And also songs have distracting ambient studio chatter at the beginning. So an album of two halves, 3.4 to 5. Today I listened to album 389, Mariah Carey's 2005 album The Emancipation of Mimi. I came in expecting to hate this album. I've never been a fan of Mariah Carey. I'm not sure why, maybe it's because I have to listen to that godforsaken Christmas song for 2 months every year. Maybe it's because she wails like a cat whenever she sings, or maybe it's just because I think her success is totally out of relation with her quality. This album does not contain any real surprises for me. She continues to oversing on every song, her whistle tone a WMD threatening to break every window in my house. Her brand of hip-hop influenced R&B has always left me cold. This time she brings in Usher alumnus Jermaine Dupri and Kellis alumnus The Neptunes to help her with production. The best songs are probably the big singles. We Belong Together is a bit overplayed, I still think it has a cute sentiment at its core, and Shake It Off is a pretty good breakup song. Overall, The Emancipation of Mimi did not change my mind on Carey. I can't stand her voice, and her lyricism and production leave me cold. 2 out of 5. Today I listened to album 388, Aretha Franklin's 1972 album Young, Gifted and Black. Aretha Franklin might be the greatest female singer ever. For me personally, I have to rank Tina Turner slightly higher, but Franklin elevates every song to a religious majesty. At times she can be a little overwrought, a little Mariah Carey. She genuinely balances her voice very pleasantly. Franklin's covers are generally excellent, especially Nina Simone's Young, Gifted and Black and the Beatles' Along the Winding Road, and arguably improve upon the originals. Her originals are a bit mixed. First No Kokomo is a heartwarming tune, Rocksteady is funkier than I had ever expected from Franklin, but interpolating nursery rhymes is stupid whether you're Leah Kate, The Elegance, or even Franklin or the King's Horses. Overall, Aretha Franklin is a fantastic singer, but this album is just middling. 3.2 out of 5. Today I listened to album 387, Radiohead's 2007 album In Rainbows. I've always been suspicious of Radiohead. Like, if you met someone who told you that Radiohead was their favourite band, you'd also be immediately able to name their favourite film and their favourite book. Anyway, like most people, I was introduced to Radiohead through Creep, but 15 years later, they were a completely different band. The record opens with the unsettling 15 step with its anxious bass line, before unleashing lead singer Thom Yorke's mewling voice on the spare Nude. It wasn't until Weird Vicious / Arpeggii I started to get into this album. It also reminded me why Radiohead and Coldplay were compared so much in the 2000s. This is a deliberate choice on Yorke's part to be basically incomprehensible in this album, but he carefully enunciates the first, slightly creepy lines on the aching and lusciously produced House of Cards. Unfortunately, In Rainbows closed with the boring lullaby videotape, so I'm left a bit underwhelmed with this record. It's the first time I'm going to call an album overrated. 2.9 to 5. Let's go! Today I listened to album 386, Jay Dilla's 2006 album Donuts. With like instrumental jazz, instrumental funk, and largely instrumental progressive and krautrock. This time it's instrumental hip-hop. It's basically my platonic ideal of hip-hop production. Jay Dilla chops up and messes around with classic soul, R&B, and funk samples, including some of the most famous songs ever, and applies every track in the book to create a truly complete experience. Each song is only about 9 seconds long, so the album moves through its 31 tracks at a breakneck pace, which can be a little disorienting. Thematically, Donuts was understood to be about death, which can be seen in the titles of the songs bookending the album. The opener, which samples Gary David of obscure funk band Chocolate Star, is named Donuts Outro, and is juxtaposed against the last song, Welcome to the Show, which samples both Gary Davis again and When I Die by Canadian band Motherlode. This gives both a feeling of the impending end, but also the hopeful prospect of a cyclic rebirth. Fittingly, Donuts released only 3 days before Jay Dilla's death. R.I.P. 3.5 out of 5. Today I listened to album 385, the Ramones' 1987 album Rocket to Rush. The Ramones were probably the first punk band, but always aspired to be in the mainstream. Songs like Sheena is a Punk Rocket and Ramona were aimed squarely for the top 40, even though they didn't make it there, at least in the US. What sets American punk apart from its equivalent across the pond is that it was more of a deconstruction of music itself. A collapse of melody and harmony until you're left with nothing but 4 chords, a backbeat, and a gasping, strained voice. In contrast, British punk was about the destruction of society, at least the political class. On this album, the Ramones were loath to say anything political, save for a sly mention of DDT on Teenage Lobotomy. Rachel Carson's influence. Perhaps it's because of political divisions in the band. Joey was apparently left-wing, while Johnny was a lifelong Republican. He'll probably enjoy a Rocket to Russia now. 3.3 out of 5. Today I listened to album 384, the Kinks' 1968 album The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society. The British invasion has always been poorly named. Bands like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who didn't introduce an entirely new British style of music. Instead, they effectively repackaged the rock and roll of their American music idols. Really, it was an American invasion of Britain. That's what the Kinks were fighting against on this album. Besides preserving Draft Beer, Moriarty, and Desperate Dan, they also sought to defend vaudeville and variety. British forms of entertainment from the Victorian era which were being drowned in the deluge of Americana. In some ways, the Kinks embody a bunker mentality. They are the last of the good old-fashioned steam-powered trains, the last in the lineage of distinctly British entertainment. This record also can be seen as expressing a continuity between British music and American rock music. It is still a rock album through and through. Those like Wicked and Bella rock hard. This album should not be merely understood as a repudiation of modern music, but rather of the complexity of musical lineages and the value of conservation. God save the Kinks. 4 out of 5. Today I listened to album 383, Massive Attack's 1998 album Mezzanine. How do genres emerge? In the Spotify age, people's musical tastes are more diverse than ever, and more artists are fusing elements from different genres. We need to call this music something, so a new genre label is coined, sometimes with great opposition from artists themselves. Korn hated being called new metal, MCR rejected the emo label, and Massive Attack did not appreciate the label of trip hop to describe their downbeat fusion of hip hop, electronica, and alternative rock. It's a pretty low-key album overall, of moody hip hop beats and grinding guitar riffs, with some guy mumbling or quietly rapping on top. It's not that interesting. I promise the album is real when Elizabeth Fraser of Cocteau Twins invited to sing, on smash hit and house MD theme Teardrop and Black Milk. Mezzanine is between two worlds, the grounded reality of much of hip hop and the escapist wonder of much of electronica. I find myself experiencing something in between. Grounded wonder? 2.8 out of 5. Today I listened to album 382, Tame Impala's 2015 album Currents. At the time of this third album, the one-man band Tame Impala was standard bearer of indie rock in the 2010s. So what did indie rock look like in the previous decade? The guitar was no longer the driver of melody, it was often relegated to the rhythm section. The melody was largely carried by beeping synths, and if we're lucky, a bass guitar. Songs are all eminently danceable, especially the opener Let It Happen and The Less I Know the Better. Disciples is probably the best song, the distant descendant of Daft Punk's Digital Love by combining sugary sweet vocal production and a disco beat. But there are downsides as well. The voice modulation of Past Life is annoying, the album's cohesiveness can also be called repetitiveness. If you can tell the difference between Cause I'm a Man and New Person Same Old Mistakes, you're a better listener than I am. I should point out that Tame Impala's career is definitely not over, so who knows if Currents will remain its apex. 2.7 out of 5. Today I listened to album 381, Lynyrd Skynyrd's 1973 album pronounced Lechnerd Skynyrd. I do appreciate the commitment to the worst band name in history, save for perhaps the Foo Fighters and the Doobie Brothers. Lynyrd Skynyrd really have two modes in this album, a bluesy nasty stomp resplendent with honky-tonk piano, songs about racism and southern pride, showing a mature understanding of place of origin, and a freewheeling rock god mode, where they just let the guitars sing, notably on the Wistful Tuesdays Gone and the Heroic Freebird. Lynyrd Skynyrd is kind of name your adopt when you don't expect to be famous, but by the end of recording the most famous guitar solo in history on Freebird, you must have known they were going to be big. The band wouldn't achieve their biggest pop hit until their second album, but Lynyrd Skynyrd's debut is the most complete offering. 3.3 out of 5. Like, share, comment and subscribe.